Welcome to the Trailblazing Texas podcast, where we embark on a journey through our diverse Texas landscapes and breathtaking trails while always engaging with our amazing Texas hiking community. So settle in, tighten up those bootlaces, and get ready for the thrilling tales awaiting for you on this episode. Welcome to the Trailblazing Texas podcast. I'm your host, Jason, as always. And today we have a very special guest. I don't know if listeners, if you can tell how excited I get when I find someone in our Texas hiking community that volunteers, that part of any kind of an organization that supports our hiking community, or even opens up businesses that support our hiking community. Well, today I found an awesome business. So before we get into the episode, I first want to talk about this past weekend. So I was invited to the fourth annual Texas Hiking YouTube meetup this year. It was held at South Lano River State Park. And I can tell you, as excited as I was to be invited and making the time to attend, I can tell you certainly I was definitely nervous. Like I think a lot of these YouTubers, I've seen their content before. I've talked to them on different social media, but it's a little bit different actually meeting them in person. And I can tell you what I experienced for these last 3 days was absolutely amazing. First off, everybody was so inviting. I mean, right off the bat, it felt like, we knew each other for years. Certainly, it wasn't like that, we had just met. Everybody was so nice, inviting, sitting around the fire, sharing stories, experiences. And, for me, witnessing firsthand, how much time that they dedicate to their channels for our community was, really pretty incredible. And I think the coolest part was not one person out of this group talked about trying to make money through their channels, but it was rather like how to better serve our Texas hiking and backpacking community with tips and tricks and what our community seemed to be interested in. So that was really pretty spectacular. And you could tell, like just listening and through the stories, that everybody was really excited when they got to see how their channel, just inspired people to get outside, or through their lenses, people were able to experience locations that they would never be able to see in real life. And through the user interaction where, our subscribers that are consuming the content, making such comments like it, you could tell it's really motivating, and it keeps, them just putting in the time to bring that content, to our community. So for these reasons, I definitely want to take a few minutes before we get into the episode to introduce my listeners to these wonderful channels, and definitely to the listeners, subscribe, watch this content. You will learn so much about gear, about hiking in Texas, about locations, even about wildlife. So the first channel that I would like to kind of highlight, this is all common spelling, all ran together. So if you're searching on YouTube to find them, it's Texas Hikeaholic Adventures 5651. Wonderful couple. Next channel is Geezer Adventures. Again, couple that slay the trails together. Great content. Our next channel, and before I introduce this next channel, I just want to tell my listeners, Liz is safe. And, this is, if you know, you know. So the next channel is Liz Trails and Travels 4624. The next channel is Veggie Heather. And if you know me and you've seen my gear room, I have a lot of cool gear. I think I finally met a fellow hiker backpacker that has way better gear than I do. So it was pretty cool to witness. The next channel, if you don't know this guy, I don't even know if you've ever stepped on a trail or linked to any Facebook Texas hiking groups. The legend, Cameron Hall 88. And then we have the next channel, The Not Lost Nomad. Next channel is Tangent Trails. And then we have Travis. So it's Travis T432. This guy can actually probably, hear a bird 6 miles away and tell you what kind of bird it is. So his channel outside of hiking and backpacking, he's really into the I guess he called it birding. And so if you're into that, that's the channel you need to follow. I think there's 4 channels that we have that we're not able to make the trip. So we have the Chuco Hiker. So it's at Chuco Hiker. And if that name sounds familiar, he was on episodes 23 and 24 of the podcast. Then we have West Texas Hiker 792 or 7962. Next channel is The Adventures of Eli. So it's The Adventures of Eli. You could look up. And then lastly, we have the Blue Collar Backcountry. So it's at Blue Collar Backcountry. So I can tell you guys that are listening, absolutely give these channels a follow. Follow every one of them, and I guarantee you will not be disappointed. If you love hiking in the outdoors, if you love to experience neat locations, tips and tricks, gems that are probably not just public knowledge on certain locations for hiking, backpacking, you will be fulfilled. All right, so now back to the episode. So for the next 3 episodes, we will be featuring Ole Raven Outdoors, and I have the owner of Ole Raven Outdoors, Adam. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Jason. I appreciate you.
You and I, this is just, I always like to start off an episode to let the listeners know, like, kind of how we met. And it's all been virtual. So I have, I don't know for how long, but for sure, probably before COVID, you and I have communicated on each other's Lone Star hiking trail posts, about this or that. The Lone Star hiking trail is a very important trail to me. I'm on it probably every Sunday during my hiking season.
It's awesome.
Yeah. And it was just like 2 weeks ago, like I saw your business and I saw some videos and I'm like, wait a minute, that's not Adam, is it? And then I looked, I'm like, and I messaged you and I'm like, is this you? And you're like, yeah. And I'm like, oh my, I'm on my podcast. So I really gotta, I'm excited about this episode and I really gotta, I really just want to jump right in. So for me, there are so many questions about the Lone Star Hiking Trail and this or that. And like, so what inspired you to start a business that caters to hikers on our trail?
Well, the easy, why the Lone Star Trail? Because it's the backyard for me, and
Yeah.
where things kind of got started. When I first got out there and spent my first couple nights, like backpacking, it was like, man, this is awesome. And not that I'm all that experienced or anything in comparison to folks that hike long trails and stuff like that, but I definitely want people to experience that feeling that I had with the first couple times of just everything was wow, um, and I also acknowledge that, right, not everybody is maybe capable of having a more traditional experience, and I want to help people that maybe they have a CPAP and that's part of their life, or maybe they have spinal issues or something like that and can't carry a bag for several days. I want to help those people to also experience that wow factor that I had, and got to experience. And also, this is a tiny little selfish thing. I want more people on the trail because when we do the road walks, I want people to stop and give people rides. Like
Yes.
right now, when on that road, 945 whether it crosses
Uh,
150 and stuff. That just sucks either whichever direction you're going. And I want people to slow down and give hikers rides. And if there's enough of us like making people move over, they're gonna like get the hint. So there's a little bit of selfishness there, but yeah, you got it.
so I just had Melanie and her. So this is election night, by the way. But anyway, her part two will drop Thursday, and she has big involvement in the Lone Star Hiking Trail Club. So I asked her this question. I'm going to ask you, just kind of a little bit off topic, but is it officially a through hike if you bypass all the roadwalks?
Hey, hike your own hike and stuff. You know, for a lot of people, that's the longest amount of miles they've ever hiked, whether it's like 85 or the whole 96.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I'm not Merriam-Webster to answer those questions for you.
We have a friend. He's out there all the time, doing some pretty big miles like yo-yoing and stuff, but he always
Yeah.
skips the road walks. And so we always tell him it's not a through hike. You still have not through hiked the Lone Star Hiking Trail. So it's a little banter that we have
Yeah,
kind of back and
I'd
forth.
probably razz you if you were like bragging about it and stuff. Be like, hold on, buddy.
I did it in 2 days. Yeah, but
Yeah,
30 miles you
yeah,
skipped.
yeah.
So just to let the listeners know, it's not old, it's Ole, OLE Raven Outdoors.
Oh
They can
yeah.
find you like how yeah, they can find you on Facebook, but is there just Facebook? Is there a website? How would they be able to connect with you?
Sure. Right now we're just on Facebook, and primary motivation for that is because this is a business to help folks in the Lone Star Trail. The most amount of information anywhere on the internet is the Facebook page for the Lone Star Trail. So just wanted something to go alongside of that if you're already going there for information. But I'm gonna be putting stuff out on Reddit a little bit. There's not a huge like Texas Trail, not impact, but like presence, I guess, on there necessarily that I'm part of, anyways. Maybe some of the out west stuff more so, but for the Lone Star Trail, there's not as much. So Facebook is the place to look. And then if I could just talk about the name,
Absolutely.
Ole is just kind of that old timey reference, and the Raven is a reference to President Sam Houston of Texas. As a teacher, I teach seventh grade Texas history, my favorite subject to teach. And Sam Houston spent a couple years in his life, two separate occasions, living among the Cherokee, and the name that he got among the Cherokee translated to ravens, or to raven. So outdoor, and then equipage is, that's not just the equipment, but it also pertains to transportation. So that's kind of an encompassing word there to use. So yeah, got a reference to local history, and that's what we do.
Nice. I definitely love the name. So tell us, what services do you offer to our hiking community on the Lone Star Hiking Trail?
Yeah. So through the last 5 years of kind of keeping up on the page uh, and seeing what hikers need, and hiking the trail a couple times myself. I've shuttled folks from one end of the trail to the other quite a bit, and so that's most certainly something that's part of the business. And as a linear trail, and it's out in the sticks. There's no Ubers out there or anything, so we rely on local people to get us from one end of the trail to the other, and there's some great folks that do it. That's certainly one of our services, and it's not just one end of the trail or the other. Sometimes people need to tap out, and it's good to have a lifeline, um or have other problems, family things are going on. Doesn't really matter the reason, or maybe they're just doing half the trail. So anywhere on the trail we can shuttle. And then something I've helped quite a few folks with is going over their trip plan with them, especially like right now when during rifle season for deer, you have to camp in designated campsites, and you got to be kind of picky with your mileage and stuff. So I've gone over with a bunch of folks their trip plans, and maybe where to cache food and or water, things like that, and help them understand some of the tools we have to kind of determine how much water, where are we going to be able to get water. Um, it's just humid it is as it is here and as hot as it gets here. Those are just really important things. So um, then shakedowns as well. As people kind of rolled into that is your trip plan. What are you taking on that trip to prepare for the weather and maybe leave some stuff at home? Pick through people's gear and give them some recommendations on stuff. And then with the caching service, we have some Pelican cases that can get locked up out there in designated spots. And I just read today about somebody who was hiking in June, which is, you got to understand your challenges hiking the trail in June for sure. I did it in July, and it
Oh
was
man.
toasty. It was toasty. So, um, but he said that it was a I have 104 sometimes while he was out there, and that he had labeled 5 gallons of water all in one spot. His name's on it, the dates that he's hiking through. They're just like you're supposed to do. And somebody stole 3 of those gallons, and it's like that could be deadly if you don't have phone service and stuff, and somebody's messing with water. So, not to fearmonger, but it's like I just saw that today, and I
Yeah.
haven't heard about it a ton, but somebody just posted about it, and that's terrible, and that could ruin a trip. So, anyways, we have these Pelican cases we can lock up out there. In the woods, and have a combination lock on there at pre-established grid coordinates, and that way there's some safety and security in knowing your stuff's not going to messed with, and whatever needs to go in there, whether it's a resupply package or water or like a charging station um, or whatever, those things can be set up out there. And the thing about caches is that they can take so long to set up. If you're doing water in a dry season, and you're going to drop it off at maybe 10 different spots, and you're taking vacation days in order to do this, you got to burn a vacation day to go drop off water. So um, or you can contact Ole Ravens and I can do it, and you can enjoy your trip. So
Yeah.
caches, the trip planning, the shakedowns, the shuttles. And then I've done like food delivery out there for a number of years. I did DoorDash and Uber Eats and stuff, so well
Yeah.
acquainted with that. Just hey, I'll meet you at the trailhead, and we got a trunk full of barbecue buffet. Let's go. So that's been cool. Those are enjoyable times. Sit down and eat with folks and enjoy some of that. And also we do catering, trail catering. So if that's something you wanted planned, like a bigger meal, not fast food or something, we could pick up. We can cook out there. Just got to work out the logistics for that. And then
So you guys offer everything.
yeah, yeah, that's what we're trying to do, man. So and then we have the gear loans. If folks want to try out some stuff, want to try out backpack. I mean, if folks don't know people like myself and you, I was thinking of some of your episodes. You mentioned you had like 37 backpacks or something like that. Um, um, so if they don't have friends like us, or like most of my friends aren't into this stuff. Oh yeah, there it is.
That's
Showing
half
off
of
the
it.
new room. Yeah, you got the whole another room for that, huh? But if people don't know folks like us that are into it and they're wanting to try it out, there's kind of a like a budgetary constraint, because you got to have a thing to carry stuff, and got to have something to sleep on and sleep in, and stuff to eat. And if you don't have a buddy to borrow that stuff from, that can be difficult or a deterrent even. So I certainly don't want somebody's excuse to not enjoy a trail because they don't have it in the pocketbook or whatever.
You go out and get the wrong gear, and I'm not gonna get in preaching ultralight and all that. I personally spend money on gear because of the weight savings and stuff. But if you're getting into it, like I have a 65 liter Osprey that I don't really use anymore because the backpack itself weighs like 4 pounds.
Sure, yeah,
And that's awesome that you rent gear and give people an opportunity to probably try out, some good gear that is going to facilitate them having a better time than if they just rush to REI and or rush to
Absolutely.
Walmart or whatever or
Absolutely.
Academy and buy things that maybe don't fit them or that that there's probably better options.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing is, we get, especially in the wintertime, we get a lot of like through hikers who, there's too much snow on the ground or too much ice to do some of those longer trails. So they do some of the, relatively smaller, when you're comparison to the AT and other long trails like that. So they'll come do the Lone Star Trail just to stay in trail shape. But if they're flying here, and they want to hike with trekking poles, or they check a bag to keep in a rental car the whole time, just borrowing some trekking poles and some tent stakes and the fuel, because I think most people, that are coming from longer trails aren't using a whole fuel canister to hike the Lone Star Trail.
Yeah.
Other folks doing a more relaxed pace might, but just those kind of things help those things out. And then the other thing I got on my list here is like slack packing.
Hmm.
And some people who don't aren't able to carry a pack or just don't want to, that there's enough trailheads where it would be easy to pack up at a established campsite and then have your gear already set up, tent and all that waiting for you when you get there, and just hike your 10 miles or so with a water bottle and a filter and a couple snacks.
Wow. That's crazy. That's awesome. The funny story, it was I was gonna hike it in 3 days this past January for my 51st birthday. And it was right when we had that massive flood and all that rain.
Oh
And so like
yeah.
there was a little weather window. And so I I went and cached on the backside of Trailhead 9. And then I cached at another place. And then I was driving out to Trailhead 7. You know how you go under 45?
Yeah.
And there's that little you go under 45, you do that road walk, and then so that road was underwater. And so I'm like, okay, there's a weather window, a lot of this trail will drain. And I didn't really understand how much water we had, but I'm thinking like, oh, I got to do this. So I went and cached there. And then that night we got hit with more rain. So I just said,
Oh no.
yeah, I'm going to cancel it, but I'll go back and grab my caches next weekend. Well, there was a lady who exactly what you just said. She's hiked everything, and she's she's got to be in her late 50s, early 60s, and she was just driving through, heading to the Arizona Trail because she was going to go do that. And like she does trail after trail after trail. She just did a trip around the world on all these trails. And so
Wow.
she made a post like, "Oh, I want to, I'm driving to Arizona and I wanted to through hike. I see Texas has a long trail." She probably giggled when she said that.
Yeah.
And so I messaged her. I'm like, "Look, I was going to do a hike, blah blah blah, but the rain and everything's flooded." I go, "I have caches out there," and I sent her the coordinates and pictures of where they're all at. And she's like, "Oh yeah, I'll definitely use them." And so she did. But I asked her, I'm
Wow.
like, how did you get across the San Jacinto? And she goes, "Oh, I just swam."
Yeah.
And like it's sketchy when it hasn't been raining. And can you imagine the flow of the San Jacinto River during the high rains like that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've
You
seen
know,
it,
and
man. It's wild.
yeah, and she posted pic, she's drying out all her stuff, and but she swam it. And I'm like, holy moly. And then on some social media platform, I saw a video and I'm like, that's the lady. And yeah, she had like 65,000 followers, and she's like some epic hiker. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. But yeah, so that's just to listen to you and all the services. Like you haven't left out anything. Like you have as much as someone could possibly want, or as little as someone could possibly want with support. And that's for us for here. This is our long trail. That's to me
Yeah.
spectacular. So how long have you been, with the company and providing these services?
As long as I've been a part of the Lone Star page, I mean, it just started really organically of hey, I need a shuttle, and being a teacher, I have a good amount of time off.
Yeah.
It's or at least I'm off early, most days in comparison to some other occupations. But it's like, hey, I could help, absolutely. And man, I tell you, I've met some of the coolest people, and just shuttling on our the hour drive it is from one trailhead to the other. Yeah, I've met people that have changed my life,
Yeah.
and so it's a privilege to do it, and so just glad to be able to help people more.
Yeah. I can remember like you, was it Charlotte that are to me like I always see the main people that are picking up people, rescuing people when they want to
Yeah,
tap
yeah.
out. And yeah, so I was gonna have an episode with just the Lone Star Hiking Trail Angels.
Oh, that'd be
And just
cool.
I yeah, I'm sure the stories that you guys have, we probably talk for hours. I think in I think Thursday, Joe's wife from Trucker Joe's is coming on, and Robin, and she through hiked the Lone Star Hiking Trail, so that will definitely be a section that we kind of talk about. And she definitely has some funny stories. She actually got her trail name because of one of the stories.
Oh,
Um,
really cool.
yeah, so it's hopefully will be a really funny episode, and kind of talking about some of the stuff that we've touched on. So, you said one of your services is planning trip for people, and I think that's probably a big service, right? Like you want to maybe have an understanding where someone's coming from, why they want to do this, and like if I came to you and said, "Hey, I need you to plan me a trip for because I want to through hike the Lone Star Hiking Trail," like you don't know me from Steve, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
what my limitations are and can I push it, maybe the gear that I have. So what is your approach when you get into planning a trip, for first time visitors of our trail?
for sure. Yeah. My first question is always like, what are your goals? And as somebody who enjoys gear, as you do, when people are on the internet and they're talking about gear and really anything, there's always like a majority of people who are like, here's my question, and this is the only correct answer. But like this just not, how can you say that and not ask questions first, so got to start with a question, which is, what is your goal, what are you trying to do, and maybe some of the why are you trying to, attempt this challenge or whatever. Um, so uh, so that's the first question, and the rest kind of goes off of what that answer is. And then a big follow-up question is, what are your abilities? How far
Mhm.
have you gone on a day hike, or have you been backpacking before, or is this going to be your first jaunt with things? So how far have you walked on, and what was the terrain like? How much weight was in your bag? And from there we can kind of, use those metrics to make a plan around that, and then what time of year can you go? And that's going to make a difference whether it's hunting season or whether it's 105. Those are just a lot of factors. So got to ask questions, and it's about, what does the person enjoy? I don't want to push them to hike how I hike, or whatever. I
Yeah.
want them to have a good time. So what do you enjoy? And we can make sure that what you have on paper, or the when your eyes cross looking at the miles and the water sources and stuff, like, is what you're planning fitting in with what you enjoy already. So
Yeah, I think it's funny when you look at some of these. The Lone Star Hiking Trail, the Facebook page, I think everybody's pretty chill, but man, you get into
yeah,
some of
that's a
those,
chill
and
place.
like, people are, is this a hard hike? Well, like reach,
Absolutely, yeah.
like I don't like what does that mean hard to you? And but man, people don't sometimes they it gets kind of crazy, with just kind of the mindset of people. But I think for the most part, people are asking questions from a good place, and definitely we definitely should support them. But yeah, I definitely see it every day that some of the questions that are asked, yeah, like there's you definitely have to dive in deeper to try to understand, like what is hard to you, what is your experience, instead of just knocking somebody over the head because they've asked the question. So, what do you see in your experience some of the common mistakes that new hikers make when they've tried to plan this hike, and then they say, "Okay, I can you look this over, or can you just do it for me because it's it would appear, and I have a plan that I put together for a 3-day, 4-day, 5-day, and a 6-day, and they were not easy. I mean, eh, so what are some of the mistakes that you find?
Let's see. As far as ones that, because there's a lot of things people wish they would have done differently, but they could push through it, But as far as things that make people, get in a really tight spot where it's almost an emergency, or it is got to be like underestimating the type of heat that we have. Because I've had hikers who were from West Texas, and I was like, hey, it's pretty hot, and they kind of laughed it off like, yeah, but it's not 120. Like, all right, buddy, but you have zero water in your air. Like, this is in the woods, and it's a dense tunnel that's going to hold that humidity and suffocate you all day long. And well, that particular conversation, they had to tap about 30 miles in. Um,
Absolutely.
so yeah, that was a bummer. So it's got to be the heat and the water. It really surprises me, and it's probably, like, I have a bias because I've just been inundated with the information for so long. Probably, like, it's hard to look at things new sometimes. But people that kind of like skip the part about the water source ratings on the drops scale, and looking that up on how many droplets are we at right now. So if y'all are out there in Radio Land and don't know what I'm talking about, every in the guidebook, every water source has one, or I guess half of a drop to 5 drops in and it's a picture of a water droplet, right? Of how reliable the source is. So, like, the lake that isn't, it doesn't dry up, is a 5 droplet source, right? The San Jacinto River is a 5 droplet source. It's always, no matter how dry it is out there, you're always going to have water from a couple sources. Um, and then the rest of them vary based on, if we haven't had rain in this amount of time, or this amount of time, this amount, then it has a varying source. And so in a dry time, there's a rating on the trail website that says, okay, we're at 3 drops. So that when you look in the guidebook, everything 3 drops and above is going to be reliable, but less than that, don't count on it. So um, or yeah, vice versa. But anyways, so almost, it's a really high percentage, Jason, like 75 maybe, of people whose trip plans I go over with them, like, oh, what's drops? What are you talking about? And it's like, you don't even know where you're getting water at, man. Like, this is it's kind of a big deal, So the water and the heat, and they're really both connected. But yeah, underestimating the humidity and when it is real hot, and then not, you know, planning where the water is. It's just hard to tell when you're looking at the maps on the phone, which water is good.
Yeah. That was when we through hiked it. So I had three people that were not really into hiking. I don't even know if they hiked before, but we started doing to get them in shape, but also to just because I was new to the trail too. I think this was in 2018 or 2019, but we sectioned hiked the whole trail first. And so I printed out the maps, and
Cool.
on the back of the maps, I wrote, mile, blah, 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 possible campsite, permanent water, gross water, like
Yeah.
these mile markers and stuff. And, like when you cross over that dam in that neighborhood, I mean, it's a lot of water, but, like do you really want to drink that water? Like, it's runoff from people's yards, and you have, I don't know, uh, insecticides and
Yep, yep, all that gross
fertilizers
stuff.
and stuff. Yeah. So I'm 100%. I'm cashing all my water except if I get to Stubblefield, then I'll I'll drink that. But yeah, I'm a casher.
I will say I've had good experience. I've only cached water when there wasn't any to filter.
Yeah.
But as far as mistakes, and you mentioned beginner backpacking stuff is if you're filtering out there, you got to back flush because there's a lot of sediment in several of the sources that you're kind of forced to drink to if you're not caching. And Yeah, you got to back flush off whatever, whether it's the trick with the Sawyer cap or carrying the plunger out there. Got to back flush, or that's probably another big one too. Is if you don't have like a redundancy or a plan to back flush is getting
I would say you need to pre-filter and
yeah.
be sure you back flush because like some of those creeks, the water actually doesn't look horrible, but yeah, it's a lot of sediment
Mhm.
that you definitely don't want to get in your filters.
Right, and there's like techniques you learn and stuff to not get so much crud in there. But once again, if you're a beginner and you don't haven't learned those yet, then yeah, it's just the back flushing is a big deal. Yeah,
Yeah.
water, heat, and back flushing.
I always run into people that want to through hike and, they're new maybe to the area or they've not done a lot of research, but as wonderful as it would seem hiking or through hiking the Lone Star Hiking Trail in the winter, you can get into some situations where you're just walking in a lake. And I don't think
Yeah,
that,
that's true.
sometimes people don't understand that or prepare for that with, multi pairs of socks or insoles or
Yeah,
how are they
yeah,
going to dry out? And there was a time, I don't remember where. It had to have been between 13, 14, or 15 the trailheads, and I walked for probably 30 minutes just in a lake. I could see the blazers, but couldn't see the trail. It was just water, and I like I don't, for some dumb reason I just kept going, and
yeah.
it was a madhouse. I come to you, I want to through hike. Walk me through what is all involved in a gear shakedown.
Yeah. So people Reddit's a kind of an all right place for that sometimes if they're knowledgeable about the trail. But a lot of times on the internet, that's a picture of a layout, and here's a link to my lighter pack and stuff. And people say, use this for that, leave that at home, whatever. And it's much the same unless we can do it in person, which I'm down with
Yeah.
too. Um, but it's things that based on the weather, based on the trip plan. Maybe you need something that you didn't pack. Maybe you don't need the thing that you packed. Um, and uh, and I'll take my buddy Paul for example. Um, he was doing a section of the trail with me, um, and I kept telling him, "Hey, man, you need to. This needs not to be your first time using stuff. You need to go for a hike. You need to carry this stuff around.
That is so
So you need to set up your shelter. You need to cook a meal on your stove. You need to use everything. Don't let anything be like, I just got this from the store. It's definitely going to work. Like maybe not, and you need your water filter to work. So he gets out there. Um, he had used his water filter before, but he also lived in Virginia and left the water filter in his car over in the winter. So his filter froze
Oh,
and he didn't
no.
know. He hadn't used it since wintertime. All right. So his filter was busted. So we both used mine. Um, and he, by the way, he's using a 90-liter expedition pack, like an old Osprey, just huge bag. And it's like, all right, you're only out here for like 2 nights, man, but whatever. And then we're
And
hiking some more, and I noticed he had like a summit pack attached to it also.
oh,
And and he was like, well, then that's the case. We make camp, and then we walk around. Like, dude, no, we're just walking. We're just walking in We're following the.
If you make I have a friend Todd, he's the admin for the Guadalupe Mountain backcountry hikers, and he has a thing. He says if we hiked and we make camp and you want to go out and keep hiking, then we haven't hiked far enough. So we're gonna
Absolutely,
keep hiking.
absolutely. Yeah. I'm a big fan of hiking until it's dark and then still hike a little bit.
Yeah.
So, all right, so it gets worse, right? He's got a summit pack on his 90-liter like ancient Osprey bag, and
Oh my
and then when
gosh.
we finally get to camp, oh no, 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 we were refilling at the Evergreen Baptist Church, and he steps off a curb and he rolls his ankle, and so then we do that, like 5 miles of road walk almost. I guess it's not that
Oh,
much at that point,
it's
and
close.
his ankle's killing him with all this weight. Um, and we make camp at the Magnolia campsite, and he starts pulling out all this stuff, and I was like, "What is that?" He says, "It's a tarp." I said, "What is that?" That's another tarp. What'd you bring two tarps for? It's like I didn't know which one I wanted to use. Like,
Oh my god.
dude, that's at least a pound and a half. Just that you just threw in there nonchalantly, and he slept, and we got to the San Jacinto. We filled up water, and I was I was like, "Hey, I'll move your bag for you." And I picked it up, and I went, "Oh, what are you like? It like did you? I don't know. I don't know what he had down. There's just so much stuff." And so he hiked it again with me, and the next time we were much more thorough at going through stuff. So there's a bad example, and he ended up. We found out he had to get picked up early. He didn't get to finish, and he had broken his ankle and
Oh my
like
god. And kept
fractured it.
walking?
So yeah, for a lot. So like it's not that I'm like a gram weenie. Well, I am actually, but I'm not going to tell other people to be a gram weenie. But like it could actually hurt you. It could be more than just being a bummer of a weekend. This could affect you later in your life, because you're not doing your due diligence to do stuff. And I also acknowledge like you don't know what you don't know, and not that I
Right.
know everything, but I could help you out a little bit.
And I think also like we have a responsibility and the exact same thing on a different trail happened to me. I took a friend to Guadalupe Mountains. I've been there almost 20 times now. And there were, we had there was a reason why I was taking him. So the whole goal was is like I wanted to hike his butt off just so he just knows that he can accomplish stuff. Well, me being the more experienced hiker, I just took for granted that, he got a backpack. All right. I never asked, what are you packing in it, or tried to pick it up. So the very first hike we got there, we did Bear Canyon. So it's, the hardest elevation gain of the park. And we were sitting on the trail and he was, struggling probably a little bit more than what I thought he would. And so I was getting our backpacks off the trail, and I grabbed his backpack and couldn't pick it up. And I'm like, dude, what do you have in here? Man, he had a shovel. He had, I think, 6 MREs, and
Oh
how
yeah,
those things are. I'm like, dude, this is a day hike. We're just having snacks. And then he had like 12, 16-ounce water bottles. And I'm like, oh my God.
awesome. It's incredible.
Out of his backpack and put it into my backpack and just, carry, carried it when we finished the day. But yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. You don't know until you realize you don't know. And God, 90 liters.
Yeah, it was full, man. It was full. So yeah, it just trying to eliminate some redundancies if they're there. And hey, this is a multi-use thing. Take this instead. And the weather's going to be like this. You don't need your 30-degree sleeping bag probably, or whatever. It's going to rain a lot. You need to make sure you have this and this. Just um, based on the trip plan, can help out in that regard. So.
Yeah, and that actually happened to me. The first time I through hiked, I somehow thought I needed a different outfit for every day. So, I mean, they match, they look cool. But yeah, I had a hiking outfit for every day, and I learned really quick, like half I didn't even change clothes.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
uh
They're just
and
already
so yeah, that was
stinky.
yeah, that was probably, I don't know how many pounds of just clothes that were just in my backpack. So yeah, I learned really quick that you don't need a lot for a through hike. So how did you go through? So you have a equipment loan program. So how did you determine what items, what gear that you would kind of incorporate into this program, and what people like I'm guessing with all your experience, and I know that you've helped out a lot of people on the Lone Star Hiking Trail page, did you just look at kind of your past experience with helping people, or did you already have an idea of what you wanted to get?
Um, well, to be honest, there, like, uh, the progression and accumulation of gear through it is just a phenomenon of overanalyzing things,
Hmm.
and so we have enough stuff where if somebody had absolutely nothing, I could fill up a bag and give them the bag, and everything would be in there. And I could also go on my own trip the same weekend and it not be affected, right? So,
Oh,
um, that's just, and I'm sure Jason, like you have a lot of stuff, and it's like I could sell all the stuff, or I could help people with it, and so that's what I want to do. And yeah, from sleeping pads, like I said, something to sleep on and under and in, and the tent stakes and the cookware and the stoves and the bag itself and trekking poles. It's all there. Whatever somebody needs, we got it.
nice. And what do you think is the most essential piece of gear for someone that wants to hike the Lone Star Hiking Trail?
Yeah, I think my mind goes to a water filter first. The cell service is pretty good throughout the majority of the trail for almost all carriers, from what I've heard. I think probably a majority don't take a like an inReach or some kind of SOS device like that. So yeah, water filtered battery bank. Gotta keep those. Gotta keep the fluids going in and be able to call for help if you need it. So those are pretty important. But that's maybe almost universal, not specific enough for the Lone Star Trail. But
No, I think it makes sense. And so for the guided hikes, what do you do to ensure? I know you can't ensure safety because every time you step on the trail, you should always plan for the absolute worst thing that could happen because there's a chance that it could happen. But how do you kind of like what are all the steps that you do to try to ensure as best you can, whether it's you're planning for someone's hike or you're taking someone on a guided hike, that their safety?
yeah, so I think there's a lot of drink mixes. A lot of people are taking drink mixes just so that water's not so boring constantly. But it's important that like there's not just really loaded with sugar and stuff, but that there's good electrolytes in those drink mixes. So that's something I encourage people with, because that can be a problem, not getting enough of those, and if you're sweating a bunch on the trail. And then as far as like foot stuff, uh, if it's a wet season, and even if it's not wet, you still got to cross the San Jacinto. That having shoes that dry fast, that's not something that everybody is on board with yet. I guess there's still a lot of like traditional footwear,
I need a
wearing
hiking boot.
leather, yeah, the big leather hiking boots and stuff, and um, that can ruin your day, or your couple of days if your feet are getting shredded because they can't dry out. So shoes that dry fast, some electrolytes, and as far as like a guided hike, if I'm with people, I always pack the heavy med kit. Personally, that's like a kind of a burden I have in my life. Some stuff that I've witnessed and seen to seek out emergency like trauma life support training. So I have about 150 hours of like trauma life support training, and we do share the woods with hunters and stuff, and it's not just maybe catching a stray bullet or getting shot by accident and stuff. There's other things that can compound it, turn into severe trauma, and so having the equipment to treat those kinds of injuries and keep folks alive while we wait for a helicopter or whatever, to get out there because it is a bit of a drive if you're trying to get there on purpose, and and so for EMS to respond to things, that's something that's important to me. There's a lot of people who, it's like, hey, all I need is ibuprofen and a safety pin or whatever. But I'm a pack more than that, especially if I'm with other people, that or with my kids or whatever. I'm going to go heavy on that part. So, I don't know that everybody sees that as like a perk necessarily, but because maybe that's too much for some people. But it's there, and if you need it, I'm gonna have it, and I'm gonna know what to do with it. So
Well, I think anybody that would think that would be too much is definitely inexperienced, and definitely don't do a lot of research into. So I'm a huge book listener, and I love
yeah,
the books of like there's just tons of stories where something happens, where it's mountaineering, whether it's hiking, they make a mistake, and a lot of times it doesn't end in a happy ending, and there's so much to learn, right? And then you start to really understand that I don't care if it's a neighborhood hike, I don't care if it's on the Lone Star hiking trail, like you need to be prepared. And I would much rather carry an extra pound of stuff that I hopefully will never need than need it and not have it.
yeah. There's
Yeah.
definitely balance to that, but you gotta look at the like the risk of not having it versus and there's a lot of wilderness first aid courses and stuff that will teach like, hey, this is how to improvise this thing, but like that's a backup plan. I don't want my main plan to be a backup plan,
Yep.
um so I choose to have the stuff.
Yep. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And I've walked up on a I think it was one of the first times that I ever stepped on the trail, a bow hunter. He was out there, and he
Oh
was
yeah.
all camoed up right on like a pipeline. And I walked, how the trail exits onto these fire lanes, pipelines, whatever you want to
Yep,
call them.
yep.
And he was just right there on the corner, and he said something to me, and I'm like, it scared me at first, and
Why
then
is
'cause I
this
didn't
bush
see him.
talking to me? Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm asking him, I'm like, you're not supposed to be, you do know that you're not supposed to be, I think it's like 200 yards or whatever from the trail.
Right, yeah.
Um, and yeah, I mean, that, I was like, he had a bow and arrow, so I'll just keep walking. I took my boss, we were at Trailhead 1, headed to 3 and back, I believe. And he's from Switzerland, so guns and hunting are not part of his. I mean, I guess they do have guns because everybody joins the military, but it's different there.
That's
And
right, yeah.
so we're hiking back, and there's a gunshot. And when we were hiking to Trailhead 3, there was a deer stand in the trees, probably about 200 or 300 yards off. And I kind of pointed it out, but I didn't see anybody in there. And I don't know if that's where these guys were, but we're heading back, gunshot not too far away. I kind of jump, he really jumps, and probably like 10 minutes later, they're on the trail with a wagon pulling out this deer. And
Awesome.
yeah, so we are, when you're on the trail, and even I think hawk season is all year round. So
Yep, yep.
there's a potential that you're going to hear gunshots, and hopefully the hunters know where the trails are, know where the possibility of people are going to be, and don't aim that direction.
Yeah, I've hunted out there. You got to get a couple permits to do so, and all the maps that they have are really well marked where the trail's at, which I'm thankful for. All not to give people like a an impression that they might get shot at while they're out there. I think some people kind of ham it up a little bit on the Facebook page sometimes, but all 100% of my encounters with hunters out there have been great. That there's a certain way they have to carry their rifles unloaded, nothing in the chamber, while they're walking on the trail to get to where they're going to hunt at, and all 100% of the time, they've all been like in compliance with that, and that's cool. I appreciate that. And everybody just needs to understand, like, they're enjoying nature. I'm enjoying nature. We're both outside. We're doing our thing.
Yeah.
At the same time, we're just not doing the same thing. And as long as I'm safe, they're safe. I'm cool.
So outside of the fall story, do you have any other memorable or challenging experiences that you've had either hiking with someone or guiding someone on a hike?
Nothing comes to mind so much. Just like good conversations and
Yeah.
meeting good people. Those are just pleasant memories, I guess. Nothing that sticks out that much. There's been people with heavier bags than what I'd be willing to carry and stuff, but it wasn't bothering them any. They didn't get hurt,
No.
so it's all groovy.
Yeah, it's amazing when you really get into this community hiking and backpacking. And I've met people in a lot of the states, and I find it pretty common that there are some wonderful people in our community, and and it's like all walks of life. Like, you could be sitting around a campfire with a lawyer, with someone who's a dirt bagger, and everybody's getting along and having a good time. So it's it's really a wonderful community for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So how does the shuttle service work? If it doesn't have to, or does it? Does it have to be someone that's already reached out to you for this service, or could it be ad hoc? Do you have to already know that they're on the trail and this is a potential, or is it really open to anybody?
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't, it doesn't need to be a through hiker or anything like that because like we mentioned before, it's a mostly linear trail. Um, yeah, I do appreciate some heads up rather than, hey, I'm here right now. Can you get me right now? Like, I got a family and a job and
Yeah.
stuff too. Charlotte's usually more available for spur of the moment stuff like that. But yeah, anybody, any part of the trail as far as you want to go, and doesn't doesn't matter too much where what the details are.
Yeah, I've seen for sure, like, you've acted pretty fast on, some people posting on Facebook on the Lone Star Hiking Trail that they're in need or they need to get back because 'cause they're tapping out. Yeah, you action pretty quickly.
Yeah, and if I can't get there, like I can put them in contact with somebody who can pretty quick, and that's what's most important.
So what about your caching services? What are the common, supplies that you have? And I'm guessing, it could really be open to anything.
Absolutely. If it fits in the box, it's good to go. Um, so these Pelican cases, they are watertight. They so fire ants aren't getting in it, rain is not getting in it, raccoons aren't messing with it, and with the padlocks on there, people aren't messing with it. If they can find them and know where to look. And I'm really proud of this slogan. You ready for it? Right. So you can't. They say don't pack your fears, but you can cache your fears. Right. So um, if you want
I
to
love it.
if you want to have redundancies in there, extra water filters, whatever, like a game of backgammon, it doesn't, anything you want to put in there. Um, and I mentioned folks that live their lives with the CPAP. So there's only a couple places to recharge along the trail, and if that's something you're going to look at, there's Stubblefield 20 miles in. Like you could potentially maybe charge something at Evergreen. I know they said we could use their water, but I don't know. It might be iffy with the at the church. And then when you get to Double Lake, you could plug in there. But if you're not at a pace that facilitates that, I have some of these larger battery banks. Solar generators is what they are called. They don't generate electricity, but anyways, so just big honking batteries that fit in those boxes, and so you could hike there, camp near that cache, plug it in, throw it back in there, and then lock it up. And then another thing is if people decide, hey, I didn't need my puffy or whatever else, something more consequential, something heavier.
All my
And
clothes.
yeah, exactly. Their wardrobe,
Yep.
um, their formal dining clothes and things, right?
Yep.
Leave them in the box, leave them in the cache, and then however we want to organize that, we can mail them back um, or whatever, so that you don't have to keep hiking with all those things. So yeah, don't pack your fears, but you can cache your fears.
I like that. So, if someone's coming in from out of town and they want to set up caches, would they be able to, let's say, like for dietary restrictions or any of these kind of things, just would they like send you money and then you would go out and buy the meals or whatever and have the caches ready, or you guys would meet ahead of time and they would give you everything and then you go out and cache kind of maybe as they start the hike and you're like how does that work?
Yeah, it's up to the customer, whatever they want to do. It's really easy to like fill up an Amazon cart and just mail it to me instead of their personal address, and then I could fill it up that way. Sending a shopping list is fine too. I mentioned dietary stuff. My wife is chronically gluten free, and so we are very used to paying attention to ingredients and stuff and double checking things like that. And like I said, my experience with DoorDash and Uber Eats, uh, I want to, in those situations, like I wanted to make money, so this order needs to be correct. And I apologize to people that have not had that level of detail on their delivery orders. But
No.
anyways, so that was always something that was important to me, knowing that if my wife was delivered something that was wrong, we'd be in the emergency room. So um, anyways, and that was like several times at a restaurant they've been like, yeah, it's definitely what it is. It's like, no, it's not. So
Oh
it's just
man.
it's just way too important to breeze over that. And so that's something I'm used to. That's just part of our life. And so as far as shopping and whatever, that's something that's going to be taken care of. And yeah, like you said, it's those are kind of like three different ways you could do it, and all of them are great. I don't know that most people would do let's meet up and you could drop it off, but it's certainly most an option. Just
No.
trying to save some time out there.
And so I'm assuming that it's really important that you are up to date on trail conditions and closure. Like, I mean, we just had barrel, so lots of trail closures and stuff. How do you keep up with all that kind of stuff? And that wraps up another exciting episode of the Trailblazing Texas podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode today and stay tuned for our next episode where we will pick back up where we left off and guarantee to uncover many more hiking gems and share many more tips to enhance your experience on the trail. Until then, happy trails and happy hiking.